Okay, so this is the Checkpoint project marking 30 years of border crossing. It's Thursday the 2nd of April 2026 and we're in Basildon. Would you like to introduce yourself with your name and year you were born and give a bit of a description of yourself, please?
Sure. Well, my name is Lee Jones. I was born in 1972 and I suppose I'm a slightly overweight middle-aged white man with a beard.
And so this project is marking 30 years of border crossings and people have got involved in that in various different ways. I know that you were at drama school. Could you tell me a little bit about that, how you got into that and what you were doing?
Sure, yeah. Well, I studied at Rose Bruford down in Sidcup from 97 to 2000. I was a little bit older going to drama school than most of my peers. I'd been a bit unsure that I was brave enough to do it. So I was 24 when I started. So I guess I would have been 25 when I met Michael, who came in my second term to direct a production of The Art of Success by Nick Dear, in which I played the role of William Hogarth, the caricaturist and artist. I have very fond memories of that particular production and of working with Michael. It was a lovely play, a wonderful play. I thought very funny, and Michael's ability to see the humour and draw that out was something I found very appealing about him. I really warmed to him at that, and he himself struck me as a funny man. I have specific memories of that production. Were that we went as a cast with Michael to visit William Hogarth's house, which is now a museum dedicated to the man. And we really immersed ourselves in that world, in Hogarth's era and London as he experienced it. It was quite a raunchy play. There's lots of, I guess, very like a sort of a novel of that time, full of scandal and bursting corsets and things. I remember doing terribly well in that in my course because of that play, and I was very inspired by Michael's approach to directing. His cultural sphere was quite inspiring to a young man from Southeast Essex, and the way he used sort of similes and metaphors to bring out the ideas behind the play, I found very, very exciting and stimulating. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed working with him. He said very complimentary things about me, which was lovely. But then sort of shortly after drama school, I was doing the jobbing acting thing, and Michael contacted me and said that he was going to be directing Xerxes at the ENO, and would I come and be one of his sort of extras, which I did. And for the next 5 or 6 years, I was getting work with the English National Opera, and then eventually that also transpired for me getting work at the Covent Garden Opera House as well. So indirectly, Michael was responsible for the majority of my income for the first 5 years of my acting career. I was only involved with Border Crossings the once, which was a touring production of Michael Keneally's Bullies' House, which explored the treatment of Australian Aboriginals by the predominantly white Australian government. I guess I was the villain of the piece in that, a sort of officious, rather narrow-minded white government official, civil servant type, who had very little respect for the culture of the people he was put in charge of, and only really interested in the sort of dollars and cents aspect. It was a very interesting experience in that I got to meet a group of Australian Aboriginal actors who came from Australia to perform in it. The press, I remember, were very excited by the Natasha Wanganeen, who was in the piece, who had been in the very successful Rabbit Proof Fence, which I watched prior to going on the tour. But I really hit it off with Heath, one of the young men, and he and I spent quite a lot of time together, and we talked a lot about his experiences because it was so very alien to my own. He told me that he lived quite a traditional life back in Australia, and that a lot of the more sort of spiritual, cultural aspects of the play were quite close to home for him. We toured around quite a lot of places, actually. We were going for I can't remember exactly how long the tour was now, over 20 years ago. But I do remember we were on the road for quite a long time. And there was one place I was particularly excited to perform in, which is the Little Georgian Theatre. I can't remember the town, but I'm pretty sure it was over in Gloucestershire, because the patron of that theatre was Ronnie Barker. And I'm a big Ronnie Barker fan. And I had heard or been told that Ronnie Barker, as the patron of the theatre, met with every theatre company that performed in his theatre. And I was very, very excited that I might get to meet one of my idols. And sadly, I think just a few days before we were due to arrive, he became quite ill and died shortly thereafter. So that was a bit of disappointment for me, but obviously nothing to do with the actual play or with Michael, but it was something that stuck in my memory as being very excited at the prospect of meeting Ronnie Barker. It was arguably Bullie's House, my first professional production. Although I was reluctant to admit that in the program, I seem to recall Michael saying, would I be happy with him putting it down as my professional debut? But I wanted to seem like I'd done more. So I insisted on listing a few other things. But no, it was really my professional debut. And again, I really enjoyed working with Michael. I really enjoyed the way he drew out the truth. And he works on a very intellectual level, Michael, which I really connect with. I'm going to get a lot of flack for saying this, but there are people in this industry who are a bit flaky and a bit esoteric, and I don't really get on with that. I like to get to the intellectualizing. I like to understand things in a very methodical way, and I got the impression that that's something Michael also appreciated, and I found that very useful because it really helped me to get a belief in this rather officious, unpleasant little man that I was playing, so that he didn't. I hope he didn't come across as pantomimey or cartoonish. I hope he came across as believably officious and unpleasant. But yeah, I'd say that was very much down to Michael. And now that I'm a teacher, I have to direct from time to time school shows, and I hear myself sometimes talking to the kids, and I'm conscious that that's something Michael would say. I think he influenced the way I direct through metaphors, through similes, through cultural comparisons. I really appreciate the opportunities he gave me. I really have to say he's responsible for a significant portion of my professional career before I switched to teaching.
So tell me, with Bullie's House, tell me a little bit more about what that play is about, and in particular the character you're playing.
Bullie's House explores a government-run encampment, I suppose it would have been. These were historical fact, as Thomas Keneally tended to write about things that were grounded in historical fact. So the Aboriginal or Indigenous communities were sort of put on reservations, and my government character was, I suppose, an administrator of such a reservation. The community, represented by 4 Aboriginal actors, an older man, a young woman, Bullie, the protagonist of the play, and the character played by my friend Heath, were struggling with their relationship with the white community, represented by myself as a government official, a character who was a sort of pastor or priest who worked with the locals, and an anthropologist who was studying them. So I suppose we represented three aspects of white civilization: government, academia, and religion. And whilst the pastor was sort of, he had his agenda, he was trying to convert them essentially, but he was a lot more sympathetic than my character, who was really just focused on doing his job. And the character of Bully was, he was trying to, I suppose he was trying to get the white populace to understand his people, and was not making that connection. And he wanted to express their culture and make them understand. Whereas my character just needed them to all build these little huts that we were going to give them, so that we could say, right, we've housed these people. The government has done their duty by the Indigenous community. So Bully decides that he's going to share these sort of precious totems, the ranga. Imagine a piece of carved, painted wood with spiritual imagery on it. He's going to share that with the government official and the other white men to show them the cultural history of his people. So he uses a large amount of concrete that is intended to be used for the foundations of these little huts that they're building for the people, and he embeds the ranga in the concrete and shows these people, boom, here are our people's symbols, here are our imagery, our iconography. And he expects the white characters to be moved by this and awed by this. And we're not. We don't get it. We see painted wood. And my character in particular is enraged that they've used this concrete, which was earmarked for something else, in this pointless stunt, as my character sees it. And he just gets very cross. He's very focused on his, he's a job's worth, I suppose is the term we would use, his job's worth. And he's very upset. Whereas the priest and the anthropologist, they try to understand, but they just don't. My recollection, and it's been a long time since I've looked at that script. Following this interview, I think I might see if I've still got a copy and dig it out. My recollection is that Bully is so crestfallen, so disappointed by the failure of his attempt to connect, that he ultimately commits suicide, which I think was also something that Thomas Keneally was trying to comment on, because I believe it said in the preface that suicide among young Indigenous Australians was very high, and I guess he was exploring reasons for that. So the themes, of colonialization and one culture, not even absorbing, but sort of just crushing another culture and trying to extinguish it, even through the lens of, oh, we're good people, we're trying to help, we're taking these people off the land that they have a religious connection to, and we're sticking them on the land we're happy for them to have, and saying we've homed you. Which obviously you can draw parallels from many cultures and countries where that has happened. Definitely the Indigenous community were being exploited, and definitely my character was one of the key exploiters. Little sort of story about that. One of my dear friends came to see me in this production and brought his new girlfriend, who had never met me before, to see the show. And she was so appalled by my character that she wouldn't meet me after the show. And my friend had to explain, no, he's just an actor. He's not really a nasty person. So I must have done a good job in that respect.
And what was it like working with these Australian actors? How did that work out for you?
Well, as I say, I really hit it off with Heath. But I'll be honest with you, the media were primarily very interested in the Australian actors, and as rightly they should. It was their story. So I didn't really get to spend that much time with them. They always seemed to be off doing interviews and other things. I remember Bamba, the older Australian actor, Uncle Bamba, who I believe sadly passed in the not too distant past. He was a very jovial man, but didn't. Yeah, it's not like we had long conversations. I just remember him finding everything very amusing, and he was a pleasant man to be around. But I wished I could have. Maybe it was me. Maybe I was too young, too nervous on my first job, wanting to make a good impression. Maybe I should have tried harder to connect. But I think maybe I was a bit intimidated by these actors who'd come all this way, and they were getting so, everyone was so, all the media were very much excited. The young lady from the Rabbit Proof Fence, Natasha particularly, because she had that, I believe it was an Oscar-nominated film in the not too distant past at that time. So I was quite intimidated by that as well. So yeah, that was maybe a missed opportunity on my part, which is a shame.
What about how did the different actors that had come over, how did they relate to one another, sort of the younger and older?
Gosh, well, I think there was possibly a blossoming romance, but I didn't get involved, obviously. I think, sort of Uncle Bamba, I think in his community was a man who commanded respect. And I got the impression that the younger actors, there's 3 younger actors around about my age or possibly even younger at the time, which would have been about 25 I was at the time, treated him with a great deal of reverence. And I think I just stepped into line with them. I just thought, okay, well, clearly this is a man of significance in his community, so I'll sort of follow suit. And I did sort of tend to treat him as a person to be certainly respected. I mean, I respect him anyway, but yeah. So they definitely had this reverence for him, and yet he was such a sort of affable, rather avuncular chap. In fact, they used to call him Uncle Bamba. That was his honorific, as I recall. I think that I recall that the younger cast occasionally fractured amongst themselves. It might have been some sort of some minor jealousies here and there. But I think they were all very excited about being in Britain and wanted to see a lot of it. So they would disappear off and do things, sort of go and sightsee. And I was always too skint to go with them.
And then what's the relationship almost between the play and the actors? Because the actors, it sounds like it's part of a story that they might almost own themselves.
Well, I did wonder about that. I don't recall. I don't recall asking specifically if any of them had been affected by the events portrayed in the play. I suppose that was a difficult kind of thing to bring up because you don't know what you might be sort of uncovering, where some might be something that they really don't want to talk about. Because as I say, these events do not portray the white settlers, the white community in a positive light. And so as a person of white background, perhaps I felt a little bit too self-conscious to ask. So I never really found out if the events, I would presume Uncle Bamba would have been about the right age to remember this government programme. But no, I was never brave enough to ask directly.
How are audiences responding to it, did you feel?
I think it was a play that required intellectual commitment, and it required empathy from its audience. So it wasn't a crowd pleaser in the sense that we weren't just going out there with razzle dazzle. So it appealed to a particular type of audience. I think it appeals to me. That's the kind of theatre I like, where you go and you learn something new and you think, wow, I didn't know about that. And I think the appreciation was there, but it's that kind of earnest, sort of muted appreciation. It's not people standing in the aisles and thunderously clapping. It's more people going, yes, that's interesting. I enjoyed that. Certainly, the reviews were quite good. I think some of the criticism, because I have actually got some clippings upstairs, but I think some of the criticisms were more for the writing, but the performances were highly praised, as was the direction. I actually quite like the writing, so I really don't know what their issue was. But yes, I remember, insofar as audiences expressed their appreciation, it seemed that there was appreciation. But if there was sort of, I don't know, stage door adulation, it was very much for the Indigenous actors, as it was very much perceived to be their story. And as I say, I was a cipher for an unpleasant and uncaring government.
And you said it toured around.
I wished I could.
Differences were between different places.
I wished I could. I know we stayed. I do recall staying in university digs. So I think it was a summer tour when the universities were not in session. But no, I'm afraid it's been too long. I can't remember all the venues. I remember some of them being quite big. That's about all I can remember.
The Sheffield Crucible.
Yes, that rings a bell, and that's not a small space, is it? That's where they have the snooker, I believe. But I unfortunately, no, I don't remember that. I'm sorry.
Another one was the Riverside Studios,
which I do remember because I was there quite recently, and I'd been there sort of not previously as well. I'd done something at the Riverside just before I did Bully's House, yeah, the Riverside it's an interesting space, isn't it? They film Have I Got News for You there these days. I don't remember much about being there back then. I know it was a lot smaller than it is now. They've extended it somewhat now.
So you said that this is the sort of theatre that you enjoyed. What drew you to it in particular?
Michael. To be honest, it was because Michael asked. And I trusted Michael. You know, I wasn't in a position to sort of turn down paying work, don't get me wrong. But Michael's enthusiasm for the project was all I needed to convince me that it would be a project that I would enjoy. And then sort of once we read through the play, I felt, this was an interesting story and a story I was unaware of previously. Not had much previous need to know about the history of Australia. So when I sort of got into that, and I realised what was going on in that time and how my own country would have been involved in that, it was eye-opening, and I like things like that. But yeah, if I'm honest, primarily I did it because Michael asked.
And then, how do you reflect on it afterwards? You know, has it had an impact? Did it lead to anything?
Sadly, not professionally. No. I wished I could say it had. Mine was a smaller role in that piece, and I was very glad to do it, but it did not draw perhaps the industry attention I would have liked, and I sort of soldiered on doing bits and bobs and low pay, no pay, and profit share, but no, never really got the traction I wanted, and eventually it just fizzled out and I went into teaching. So I wished I could say that it had been the first step on a path to glory, but that's not true.
So tell me about that transition to teaching. Why that decision?
Oh, well, that would be my wife. She's always been a teacher. It's all she ever wanted to do. When we were actually at school together, albeit I'm slightly older than she is. And even at school, she knew she wanted to be a teacher. So that's exactly what she did. School, university, teaching college, teacher. I was still doing a bit of this and a bit of that when we got together. She convinced me that teaching would be a way of monetizing my skill set. It is really as mercantile as that, I'm afraid. It turns out there's very little marketable worth in acting skills if you can't act. So yeah, I started teaching. I teach secondary school and GCSE and A-level, and I have done for the last 15 years. I'd go back to acting in a heartbeat. There'd be a Lee-shaped hole in the wall if somebody would offer me a paying acting job. But sadly, the older you get, the less those come up. So probably not going to happen. But yes, it was very much my wife's, not insistence, but if we were going to have a home and raise a family, as we have done, the income of an itinerant actor was not conducive to that lifestyle.
And if you could be drawn back into it, what is it that really grabbed you?
Oh, do you know what? If there was one thing that I could have had that would have made me just the happiest man, I wished I could have got in at the RSC and then just done that for the rest of my life. I'd have been happy just to do Shakespeare at the Globe or in Stratford. Just keep doing different parts every time as I got older. You know, start off doing young Hal and then end up doing Falstaff. You know, that would have been fine. I'd have been happy with that.
Is there some way that these two careers could merge, perhaps?
Oh, I wish there was. It's a tough industry to break into at the best of times, isn't it? But when you're stuck out in a cultural desert like Basildon, there's not. I am thinking maybe about doing some Amdram. There's a Shakespeare theatre group that's open in Southend. They've been going for about 3 productions now. I'm going to see what they're doing in the summer and see if I can get involved. So at least I'd have a creative outlet.
So how does the teaching compare with that sort of acting life that you used to have?
Oh, it's a different voice. Yes, it's different depending on what stage of teaching you're talking about. So I teach from 11 to 18. The 11 to 14-year-olds, so that's what we now call year 7, 8, and 9, are made to do an hour of drama a week. And this is compulsory, whether they want to or not. And a lot of them don't want to. So that's not very artistically nourishing. However, when they opt for their GCSE or A-level, at that point they commit and they have decided they like this subject, and that's wonderful. And every year we do a school show. Just before Easter, we had a production of Everybody's Talking About Jamie, which very, very, very popular show. The kids loved it. And I've done various shows over the years, which I've enjoyed doing, even though they are quite stressful in a school environment. But the end product is always a joy to see. But I don't have an outlet for performance anymore. So I can direct through my teaching and exams and things like that, but I don't have the opportunity to perform, and I miss that because that's the bit I liked the most, was performing. The closest I get to it now is I do Father Christmas every year. And I really get into that character. So, here we are.
So I'm just thinking, if you think back from your position now, if you were talking to your younger self, what advice would you give?
Oh, well, gosh, I think I've worked that out, on the off chance that I have a Back to the Future moment. I would tell my younger self to find some like-minded individuals and form a small theatre company instead of auditioning for other people. Be the work creator, even if it's on a small scale. Get your own work going, create traction through your own projects, find out about how to get Arts Council funding. But I didn't understand that back then. I thought I had to apply, I had to audition. That was my position as a sort of newly minted actor. What I didn't realize is that there would be so many gatekeepers to the industry, casting agents and casting directors and the like. The fact that I'm not really a musical theatre type person. I can sing a bit. I can't play a musical instrument. I don't like dancing. I wanted to do, as I say, Shakespeare and Chekhov and Ibsen and that sort of thing. And there's a lot less demand for that type of theatre than I anticipated. So what I realise with retrospect is what I should have done is formed a little theatre company that specialised in that kind of theatre, and maybe taken it to regional theatres where they don't get that many productions, where places in Britain that are maybe a little bit culturally barren. Seaside towns, British seaside towns, the last 20 years they've all been in decline. So to maybe do a tour of seaside towns with classic theatre, a couple of nights in each place, something maybe that was on the English or drama curriculum, so I'd be guaranteed an audience. That's what I'd tell my young self to do. It was about business savvy, which I had none. I was only interested in the creative side, and I loved the creative side, but I wasn't very savvy, and that's a shame. Maybe if I had been, I wouldn't be teaching now.
Is that an aspect of drama school, though, that drama school helps you with the acting part of it, but does it do that part as well? The business
Perhaps not to the degree it needed to. I have very fond memories of Rose Bruford. Don't get me wrong, I thoroughly enjoyed the training I received there, and I don't believe I would have been a better actor if I'd have gone anywhere else. I think artistically, they took me on the journey I needed to go on. But when I think back to the advice I got professionally, I think it was not as abundant as it could have been, and perhaps not as up to date as it could have been. There was a lot of talk about networking, which is wonderful if you have a way in. But if you are a person on the outside, as I very much was, sort of son of a Canvey Island milkman, doesn't open a lot of doors. Networking becomes very hard. And I fear my own approach of perhaps, earnestly wanting to talk about art and literature at every possible party or after show gathering wasn't exactly winning me over with the people in control. So yeah, with hindsight, I can see that I could have done things differently, but I didn't know that at the time, and you don't know what you don't know.
I feel like this is a chapter, and there's going to be more to go.
I wish that were true. I do genuinely wish that were true. But sadly, mortgages and children are expensive, and therefore I now have to make sure my responsibilities are met. But I'm grateful for the time I had, and I'm mindful of how much Michael influenced that.
Is there